the Fireside CharLA series brought to you in partnership with United Latinx Fund and Latino Coalition of Los Angeles. I'm Richard Corral, Interim Executive Director of the United Latinx Fund. This online event series aims to engage, educate, and advocate on important and timely topics that impact LA's Latinx community during the COVID-19 pandemic and current civil unrest. I'd like to quickly thank sponsors for tonight's event, Southern California Gas Company and JP Morgan Chase, for their commitment to and investment in nonprofits like United Latinx Fund that work to transform, uplift, and improve our community's quality of life. Our program is designed to engage you, our audience. So if you have a question, please enter your questions in the chat box. And note that everybody's audio and video will be muted until the question and answer period. Also, tonight's program is streaming on Facebook Live. So to access the video, please visit LCLA's Facebook page, and Cindy will be providing a link to the page in the chat box now. Tonight's conversation centers on two prevalent and timely topics: digital divide, COVID-19, and the impact on communities of color. An estimated 1 in 5 students in California does not have access to digital devices or broadband internet, as the fight for digital equality has been framed as the civil rights issue of our time. The digital divide overwhelmingly impacts low-income students of color and creates barriers to learning that exacerbate the educational disparities that already exist. Furthermore, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the digital divide has widened even further, as youth of color and low-income communities are now forced to navigate the lack of access to technology as well as high-speed internet necessary to participate in required online classes. So with us tonight to discuss these important topics are Dr. Jessica Morales Chicas, Assistant Professor, Cal State LA, whose research uses a developmental lens to examine the role of school ethnic diversity on urban youth achievement, and examines how equity in curricular pathways motivates students' sense of belonging and achievement in science, technology, engineering, and math, STEM. And she's a triple Bruin, go Bruins. Also, we have Ricardo Mireles, the founder of Academia Avance. And since 2005, Academia Avance is an independent charter school in Highland Park with a 96% student body from socioeconomically disadvantaged backgrounds and majority Latinx. Prior to founding Academia Avance, Mr. Mireles was part of a team that launched the planning and development of 160 new schools within LAUSD, and also previously taught public policy at UCLA. Go Bruins. Thank you all for joining us tonight. Let's get started with this timely, important conversation. So we're going to start with Dr. Chicas Morales. How does the digital divide disproportionately impact low-income students of color, and how has COVID-19 exacerbated this issue? Dr. Chicas.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. We have some slides prepared. I'm a researcher and educator at heart, and so I feel like data tells a really important story. So we heard some of the data points already. Jake, do you mind sharing some of the statistics really quick, please? So I want to just start off by telling the story of what is the digital divide. You heard a little bit from Richard about what it is. Mainly, the idea is that there is a disproportionate access to technology, and technology could mean access to computers, internet access, etc., that disproportionately affect low-income students and students of color. Just as an example, 1 in 4 lower-income teens don't have access to a home computer, and you see this disproportion again across ethnicity, across income. If we go to the next slide, again, technology is not just about computers, it's also about internet access. And so households with school children who are really relying on technology access don't have access at the same rate of broadband internet access. And so we see this here with the figures as well, where Latinos in particular, African American and Black folks don't have the same kind of access to broadband internet access. We go to the next slide. What's really shifting with our understanding of the digital divide is that a lot of people now have access to cell phones, right? And these cell phones are at the palm of their hands. it is access to the internet, and it creates this fallacy that the digital divide is essentially closing. Part of that is when you see pictures here on the left, where we see that a lot more people in today's society are having access to smartphones. A lot more people have a tablet in their home. Unfortunately, when you actually look at how this has shifted over time, more and more people are relying on smartphones for internet as a form, as in a replacement of a computer. And if you're a student in high school trying to write a paper for English Lit, it's just insufficient to really be relying on a cell phone, right, to write a paper, et cetera. So as we're thinking about this data and the transition to now what we're having to navigate, which is COVID-19, COVID-19 has really unraveled, right, and created more exposure to this digital divide that was there but was hiding. So now it's not only exposed it, but it's exacerbated, because now we have really transitioned to relying on technology, not just as a convenience, but as a necessity for learning. And so today, my colleague Ricardo is going to talk a little bit about how it's really impacted education in schools on a daily basis, and how educators and administrators have abruptly had to adjust to learning outcomes and to ensuring that educational inequities don't perpetuate as a result of COVID-19 and as a result of the digital divide.
Dr. Chicas Morales, thank you so much for sharing that data. I love how you were able to kind of differentiate some subtleties, right, in the data that seemingly communicates one thing, but when you kind of unpack it a bit more, you find out that actually there is a significant disparity between technology types, and that certain technology types are just frankly insufficient and not going to be able to, already putting our students at a disadvantage. So thank you for illuminating that. I wasn't aware. So I'm going to turn the conversation to Ricardo. How has the digital divide played out at Academia Avance? And what are the unique challenges that other charter schools face when addressing this particular issue? Ricardo.
Thank you, everybody. And I'm going to repeat that COVID is exposing weaknesses and also issues on many fronts. And so let me focus on one in terms of education policy, but in particular in terms of charter schools. The distance learning, this quick shift to distance learning has obviously meant technology issues are coming up with our families, and it's not just access to equipment, but there's also cultural issues and ensuring that all our families know how to use this equipment and being able to ramp up to that. We feel happy that at our school we were able to address that, but it is across the board. We're seeing a lot of schools that are needing to focus on that, and some schools struggling. Let me put just broad context here in terms of the polarization that was existing before co-ed, specifically against charter schools. And so you have about 1,200 charter schools in the state, 300 in Los Angeles County, right? But they're not always able to access all the resources. I'll point out an example that early in the COVID crisis, there was an agreement that was hammered out between and Verizon to be able to provide internet connectivity to homes, but charter schools were initially not allowed to participate in that. Now, I think more recently in the last couple of weeks that's been resolved, but that's an example of how often the charter schools are last to the table or not involved to the conversation at all. There is a new law that is taking effect next week, July 1st, that redefines the context for charter schools, but many of the aspects of this new law are on pause because of COVID. However, today in the state Senate, there was an initiative under AB 77 as an example of how the policy is geared against charter schools, where they are capping the funds for schools at this year's enrollment. That means if schools get more students starting this fall, they would be unfunded. Now, there's a lot of effort to try to undo that. But again, I just want to point out to some of the biases against charter schools. Now, why is that important to this conversation? Right? of those schools in Los Angeles, primarily they are serving Latinos. Right, so the charter schools in Los Angeles are very focused on the Latino population, and Richard Corral pointed out how at our school we're serving 96% students that qualify for free and reduced price meals, but we're also at 99% Latino population. Right, of course, the majority of these households are of some kind of mixed immigrant status, so that any impact to society hits them the hardest. They're the ones with the least sustainable wages. They're the ones with the highest percentage share in terms of housing costs. Everything is hitting them. And now, on top of that, you're saying, great, well, become super fast tech savvy so that you can access the education that you are entitled to. That's a high bar. And so we appreciate the efforts to support our families and make that access to the technology important. It's up to schools like ours who have built the relationship and trust with our families and our kids to make not just the access to the technology, but make it work for their families. So we appreciate this opportunity to speak to folks about our needs, and we're excited about having one of our families and 2 kids talk about how this program is directly impacting them. Thank you.
Ricardo, thank you so much for illuminating the relationship between policy, charter schools, and the Latinx community in Los Angeles, and seeing how there are systemic challenges. There's economic challenges that exacerbate not only the existing digital divide, but furthermore, under COVID, it just really brings it all to bear. And I really appreciate your sort of on-the-ground expertise and also your policy savvy to be able to connect that. So I thank you so much for that, Ricardo. And, you know, as a philanthropy, United Latinx Fund is obviously very committed to and investing in nonprofit organizations that serve the Latinx community. So I'd like to ask both Dr. Chicas Morales as well as Ricardo Mireles, what role can nonprofits play to address the issue around the digital divide, and specifically, what solution has the Latino Coalition of Los Angeles provided to Academia Avance students and families? Let's start with Dr. Chicas Morales.
Well, I think part of the situation is that, as Ricardo pointed out, right, there's a lot of issues right now with access to technology in the schools, and it differs depending on the school. It differs in summer when the schools are not really operating, right, and we've already lost a lot of learning over time. So I think recognizing that there is these gaps that exist and that are going to continue to exist. I'm hoping that COVID-19 will sort of level out and we won't have these high rates, but the data is there, right? There's a second wave that could potentially be coming. And so we need to be prepared. And I think part of that is providing a rapid response with nonprofits really joining the movement to really get access to technology to our youth across the board, right? From I would say even preschool, that's learning online all the way up to the university level. What the Latino Coalition is doing in particular is we're launching a campaign, which we'll talk about in a little bit, where we're really trying to provide access to technology, specifically computers, to Ricardo's school that he talked about briefly. And so we're really excited to launch this campaign today to tell you about it, tell you how you can be involved. And I would love to see a replication of this across the board with different nonprofits.
Excellent. Ricardo, can you share a little bit about your thoughts of the important role that nonprofits can play, and specifically how LCLA has stepped up to assist students and families at Academia Avance?
Well, one is in terms of partnership. I want to really emphasize the role that partnership plays. It's not that the nonprofits that are on this all day thing by themselves. Right? They're working with other nonprofits that can help identify where the need is, identify some specifics that make that need different across our city, our metropolis, then also relying on the host organization or the relationship with the clients, the people in this case, to bring it over. It's not just enough to make something available. You have to work with the families so that they actually integrate it and absorb it and make the best use of it. And then there's the feedback, right? So we need to listen. Once we understood the need and provide a solution, is it working? We need to adjust it. And so it's important that folks on this call represent in all different sides of that multi-partnership, with the end goal of let's understand what our folks need, and then let's listen back and make sure that got addressed.
Excellent. I love how you spoke about the relationship that are cultivated in partnerships, right? In strategic partnerships, and bringing together different parties, whether it be nonprofit, for-profit, and even social advocacy and social benefit organizations. And I hope we're sort of modeling that tonight, right? We have engaged our corporate partners. ULF is a 501c3, LCLA is a 501c4, Academia Avance is a charter school. I mean, we're all coming at this from different sectors. And I think coming together to make sort of a beautiful caldo together, each bringing our own, sazon and ingredients is really what I think the future is about. I think the future is about that because I think we're really finding out the hard way that none of us can do it alone. So I'd like to begin the question and answer session, the Q&A, but I do want to remind folks to please type your questions in the Q&A chat box. We have Cindy, who is moderating the chat box, and she really wants to make sure that all of your questions are answered, and she wants to make sure that it's done in a timely and in a fair fashion, right? So please do put your questions in the chat box so we can make sure to answer your questions. I'm excited to announce that we're going to be featuring for tonight's Q&A a family that attends Academia Avance. And so what I would like to do is I would like to unmute the members of our family. I would like to introduce Ismael, and I would also like to introduce Marcela Gutierrez. And I also want to make sure, I'm not sure if her daughter is also on the line. I'm not sure if I see her, but I definitely know Marcela and Ismael are on the line. So I know that they had some questions, Cindy. So Cindy, can you please facilitate our question and answer session?
Yes, of course. I am looking for Marcela and Ismael right now to meet them. Give me 1 second.
I did promote them to panelists already, so they are online.
They're good to go, Cindy. It's all you.
All right, Ismael, can you hear us?
Maybe we could start with Marcela.
Marcela, can you hear us?
¿Nos escuchamos, Marcela?
Señora Marcela.
Sí.
Sí, ¿me escucha?
Sí, la escuchamos. Queríamos ver si por favor nos puede contar un poquito más de su experiencia con Academia Avance y lo que el beneficio que hay de esta partnership que estamos haciendo.
Señora Gutierrez, por favor, me da un momentito. I just wanted to let everybody know who doesn't speak Spanish or understand Spanish. If you go to the bottom of your screen, there's a little image of a globe called interpretation. Just press that and interpretation. Por favor, sigue, señora Gutierrez. Gracias.
Sí, pues Avance me ha ayudado mucho con mis niños. Les ha apoyado demasiado. Ahora con lo que pasó con la pandemia, pues los ayudó mucho con las computadoras en hacer sus clases. Y ha habido muchísimo apoyo con con mis niños en la escuela, pues me encanta mucho esa escuela para ellos. Y pues las experiencias con las computadoras en casa, pues me ha encantado pues, las clases virtuales que han tenido. Les ha ayudado mucho.
Tal vez, señor, si nos podría decir cuántas veces por semana interactuaban con los maestros.
Sí, trataban de 3 a 4, bueno, 3 o 2 días trataban con los maestros, pero cualquier duda que ellos tenían, ellos hablaban con los maestros.
Aparte de 1 a 1, primero en sesión grande y luego después con los maestros aparte.
Sí, correcto, porque mi niño tiene el IP y es el que anda con dudas o algo, él es el que hablaba con los maestros individualmente o ahí en la misma computadora o sus dudas que tenía.
Entonces los servicios especiales del IP también se pudieron apartar a través de la tecnología.
Sí, correcto, me ayudó demasiado y mucho a mi niño.
Cindy.
Muchísimas gracias, señora Marcela. ¿Cuántos estudiantes tiene en la Academia Avance?
Tengo 2, una niña y un niño, uno que va en el 7, va a entrar al 7 y el otro va a entrar al 9. Al 10, perdón, al 10 porque ya salió del 9.
Muchísimas gracias. And Richard, we do have a couple of questions on the chat box, if you don't mind me jumping over to those.
Please.
So Sophia Cortez has a question, and I know that Dr. Chicas and Richard, Ricardo, you guys kind of touched on this, on the role of nonprofits and the role that they can play in assisting this. You guys talked about education and how they can kind of communicate with their own, the communities that they serve, how to recognize that the digital gap actually exists. But is there anything else that you guys think that nonprofits can do to assist and kind of just educate their communities about this?
Well, I have a quick answer for that. I would like me to start.
Go ahead.
And I will start by just doing it as a dialogue with Marcela. Marcela, parte de la pregunta es cómo pueden recibir nuestras familias más apoyo y usted le ayudaría a usted cursos dirigidos a usted como mamá para cómo mejor utilizar tecnología.
Pues sí, me enseñaron mucho en base de mis hijos, a cualquier duda que yo tenía, como la computadora y todas estas ayudas que ustedes me brindaron. Pues sí, me ayudaron demasiado mis niños y pues ahí me estoy
Te doy un ejemplo, por ejemplo, esta es la primera vez, hoy y ayer, esta es la primera vez que usa usted el programa Zoom.
Sí, la verdad sí, y fue mi niña que
entonces,
me enseñó.
Esta sesión es para aprender cómo usar Zoom, pero como dice usted, fue su hija, no sé si está ahí Denise. Denise, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hola, Denise.
So you helped your mom learn how to use Zoom?
Yes.
And so to the question that was posted, and once again we see how it's the kids having to navigate the system for their parents, right? How many times have you heard the story of it's the 14-year-old daughter that's navigating the immigration system or the court system or the DMV? Well, here we are again with the kids navigating for the parents. And they do a great job. It worked. We're on today. But if there's a need there, right, for nonprofits to help. The schools are already kind of, not Avante, but schools will claim that they're already overwhelmed with trying to address just the needs of the students. Nonprofits, I think, could say, hey, wait a second, how about there's a program where we can address it to the parents and to the kids, for the kids to be better teachers. So that would be one answer I would provide. Muchas gracias, señora. Muchas gracias, Denise.
Dr. Chicas, do you have a response?
Yeah, I can add to that. So 2 things. So the first is we talked about how that could impact or the access to parents and how that's really critical to the education process, right? For kids that are a little bit older. I want to also mention how this is even more important, I would say, for younger kids where technology is maybe new to them, right? So my sister is actually a first grade teacher, and I talk to her pretty much every day. And one of her biggest concerns was, you know, the kids want to engage, but the parents have full-time jobs, may have been impacted by COVID-19 in various ways. And so they, even though they really want to engage, there's so many other social economic challenges because of COVID-19 that makes it difficult. So I agree, engaging parents in ways that can teach them ways to get involved, that can provide access to high-speed internet, that can just remove the barriers for them, especially where parents are critical to the learning process, I think is key. So that's the first thing I wanted to mention. The second thing, just to push it a little bit further, I think one thing I didn't mention in the slides before is the digital divide is not just about access to technology, but also innovation. So if we're looking forward and we're trying to break generational poverty, we need to think about how can we best prepare youth, right, to not only know how to use technology, but innovate with it, create with it, be the next, you know, Steve Jobs, right? And so a lot of nonprofits, one thing that they can do as we're navigating and as we even pass COVID-19 is to create programs that really teach these skills. That's part of what I do on top of teaching is I run various STEM programs where we teach kids how to code. That could be done across the board for a lot of different, with a lot of different schools, partnering with a lot of different nonprofits. So I challenge nonprofits to also think about that, not just think about the access piece, but the next level of that, which is innovation and creation.
Thank you, Dr. Chicas.
No, I love this conversation because it's an invitation, right? It's an invitation not only to provide the basic necessities, right? But also to think, to be bold, right, in our vision. And think about not only empowering parents, but then also how do we empower our youth to lead in this sector, right? And to be the next innovators. And let's be honest, maybe the innovation comes from the synergy between the parents' needs and the needs and the innovation of their children, right? It's very powerful and it's deep, and it turns the narrative of deficit into empowerment. And I think that is something that we here are all implicitly or explicitly dedicated to, because I think deep down inside, we all know that the very same things that others consider to be a detriment, or that others consider to be something that is a weakness in terms of our community, we know better, and we know that is actually the thing that makes us stronger, resilient, and is going to carry us as a people into the future. And frankly, we're being asked to do that right now. The world is asking us to step up and to step into who we are and to bring our assets to the table in an innovative way that frankly the world needs.